Can anybody else hear?
I know.
I just heard you, yeah.
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Now we can
Everyone
hear
good?
you.
Good, how are
Awesome.
you?
Sorry, my headphones turned off after a couple of minutes of silence. But welcome to class number 2 of Foundations of Programming. We started with 0 on day 1, but so it's 2. Yesterday we covered HTML, and we started kind of working with some code and seeing some stuff on our screen. So it's gonna start getting very fun. Today we're gonna be doing lesson 3, which can be adding CSS, cascading style sheets onto our HTML document. Before I officially begin the class, does anyone have any questions from yesterday's lecture? Anything they want to bring up to the group, or anything you want me to recap from yesterday? Awesome. I guess we are good to go. Just start with the class. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see the class schedule? Awesome. So just like yesterday, go ahead and open up your terminal. You should be able to go to where your repository is at. And I need you guys to open up lesson 3 for today. We're gonna be working with CSS. And if you're the type of person who likes to follow along on the slides, you're more than welcome to check out the schedule, open up slides for yourself as well, to follow along on your own. I'll have them up myself. You might also notice that I'm adding the class videos onto the schedule, so as the class continues and we get more people talking in the chat and we lose sight of where the videos are at, you can always just come to the class schedule. You'll find all the videos uploaded here. I typically upload them sometime around the afternoon. Reason for that is because I do sleep like at 5 a.m. Right, so my whole schedule is like completely backwards. But by the time it gets up here, it should be good to go by 2 p.m. Which, to be honest, most of you guys are working anyway, so it's not big of a deal. But you guys can go back and recover everything that we went over. And then yeah. So lesson 3, adding CSS to our document. Do we have a slideshow here? Oh, we do have a slideshow. All right, so what is CSS and where does it go? All right, so CSS, as you've heard me mention before, stands for Cascading Style Sheets, right? And the reason why it gets its name is because of the flow of the code that goes into documentation. Essentially, what's below of what has already been written gets overwritten. Does that make sense? So if you change the font of your text at the very top of your document, and then later on in your code, you say, you know what, I'm gonna change the font of my document again, and you're at the very bottom of it, it would override everything that you've done prior to it. So that's kind of how that works, right? So it's how you style your web page. It can be placed inline in the head of your HTML file or in a separate file, right? So here we see a little code snippet. You guys remember the head tag that is in your boilerplate for HTML. This is where you're going to actually link your CSS to it using the link tag. You're going to put in REL, which stands for relationship. The relationship between this link is going to be that the style sheet, right? And then the hyperreference is going to be the style.css. And it's style.css only because that's what we're going to be naming our actual file. Right? If you name it something else, obviously you're going to have to put a name of what your file is. It's just checking your files within the directory that you're working in to see if this file exists. And yeah, so that's how you're going to link your CSS file. The CSS syntax, all right, so just like everything else, JavaScript, Python, even HTML, there's syntax, grammar, the way you spell stuff and type things in. The way it's going to work is by starting off everything you're going to use to style with a selector, right? And the selector is what's going to reference the tags that you're trying to essentially manipulate or style within your HTML document. We see here a P, which stands for paragraph. That's for our paragraph tag that we use in our HTML document. If you were to be styling your headers, you could do H1, right? If you were styling an article, you could do the article selector, so on and so forth, right? It's, they kind of go hand in hand. Now, once you choose a selector, you're gonna do open and close curly brackets, and what's gonna be within your curly brackets is the actual styling that you're going to place into your selector. And it's gonna go as follows. You're going to give it the property that you're trying to style, and then its value, right? So here, the property they're styling is good color, and they're assigning it the red value. So by reading this, we know that they're trying to change the color of the paragraph to red. And then this overall, this is just what's declaring. I'm declaring that I'm changing the color of my paragraph to red, right? This is how it's written. You have to have the property followed by a colon, then the space and its value, and then to finish it off, you have to put in this semicolon. All right, don't forget this, because then if you try to add other values and you forget the semicolon, you're gonna get a bunch of errors or weird, funky business. So this is how you end that this specific declaration, so you can add more following, right? There's gonna be multiple property values that you can give some of these properties. So for example, if I was to be creating a border, I would use the property border. And then for its property value, I would give it the size, what type of border, and the color of my border, right? And then I would just put a space after each one. So it would say border colon, and then it'll be like 2 pixels space, solid space, black. And that's how it would be written. And we'll see that right now in code. How to read CSS, right? As mentioned before, CSS is read from top to bottom. So you start at the very top of your document, and as you move your way downwards, if you um, style the same theme again, it would override it. And we see a little code snippet here. We'll talk about it in a bit. So what comes further down the page can override what comes before it. That is called cascade. Thus their name, cascading style sheets. And looking at this example, what color would this paragraph end up being? It's a very simple question, right? Blue, right? Although we named it red here, and then we gave it a font weight, made it bold. Down here again, we are styling the same paragraph, the same selector, and we just changed the color blue. The font weight will still stay the same, right? This will not be overridden. We only changed the color. So even though we are styling again the P tag down here, the font weight does not get overridden. The only thing we overrid was the color. Common change colors. Actually, there's a lot of different ways to write the value of colors. I'm pretty sure you guys probably saw this during your pre-work. If you guys did some free code camp, I don't know, that's what it's still in the pre-work. I remember free code camp was pretty big in the pre-work, and we covered a lot of HTML and CSS on that. But these are the 4 ways of adding color, and 2 of these are more commonly seen, right? So we had the first way, which is how you saw earlier, which is putting the actual word of the color. A lot of us don't know many colors except the ones on the rainbow, so we can rely on the other ones, right? But if you do try to use the word, and you start typing out a color, it'll open up a drop-down box, and you can kind of see the different options. So if you're looking for like a light green, you might actually be able to find it there. I think light green is an option. So there's more than just the colors of the rainbow. So you can use that. But if you want to be a little bit more specific, there's other options. We have the hex version, which starts with a hashtag and then its corresponding uh, letter value and then 4 different numbers. Don't ask me which one's which. I don't know it by memory. Nobody does, right? Unless you web design as a business and there's some colors that you commonly use. I don't know. Right. So you can look these up. You can find this pretty easily. And there's some nice extensions too that you can download on your browser that are like color pickers, which give you the little eyedropper and you can kind of hover over something to see what a color is and choose different types of colors for your web pages or whatever. So you can use stuff like that, or you can just find websites that give you the hexes and whatnot. Next is going to be your RGBA. RGB being red, green, blue, and then A, I forgot what I forgot what it stands for. I know it's for opacity and whether it's opaque or not, or transparency. So the first one here in your value is going to be red, followed by green, blue, and then the A will be for how transparent your color is. Uh, from a range of 0 to 1, does not go higher than 1. One being, I think 0 is fully transparent or 1 is fully transparent. I don't remember. So you can use this as well. And then you have the HSLA. You're kind of a cycle if you use this. I don't see many people use this one, but this is an option. All right, so you will probably see some of these. Common change for fonts. All right, so you're also able to change different fonts that you have access to. When coding on VS Code, you'll have some default ones, which are the most commonly used, but there is a large range of different types of fonts that you can find, and Google actually offers a lot of free ones, which is pretty cool. So if you were to go to google.com, I already have it pulled up. All right, so you can go to Google Fonts, and you can scroll through all the ones you want to find. And we're going to manipulate this a little bit. I'll kind of do a small walkthrough so you guys have an idea. The assignment that we're about to do is going to request you to get a font. So if you're looking for a font, you can click the font, and then it's going to give you different types of variations of it, right? Whether it's italic, bold, very regular, or whether it's very light. You can download essentially, or you can attach these to your document, every single one of these to have the ability to use these. But when you're ready to use it, you go to Get Font. It's going to bring you to here, and you can do download all or get embed code. I was looking at the Roboto one. This is the one that's going to talk to you about. Let's go ahead and delete the other one. But you can put get embed code, and it's going to bring you to this window where it'll give you the HTML code for it. It's pretty user friendly. We have web, Android, iOS, and Flutter. We're going to be doing web. It'll give you the code for your head, right? And then it'll even give you for your CSS class. There are different styles here. Make sure you toggle on and off which ones you want. Obviously, the more that you toggle that you want to have access to on your document, you're gonna see it's gonna add more links to it and different styles. It can get very confusing if this is the first time you see it. So I recommend just toggle off most of these and maybe just put on like regular 400, right? Or actually probably just the top one. Ooh, never mind. I think that's access all of them. And you see it lowers the amount of code. You just copy the code and directly paste it into your document, right? Very user friendly. But yeah, so you have that option for your fonts, right? We see here again on your head, we had the style sheet where we added earlier. We see here the link href. They put the code that was given to them and then the relationship for it, right? And then the actual CSS portion of it. We see here we have font family. So you would essentially add the font you're trying to use initially, right? And then you give it a default in the event that for whatever reason that link was broken, there's something wrong with your code, you didn't put it in right. For whatever reason, just gets outdated. I don't know. It always has a default text to go down to, and we see here the default it's sans serif. So they added the one they wanted to initially, and then they put a comma and they gave it an additional one, right? So that's how it's gonna go. It works in order of priority. This one takes first priority, and if this doesn't work, it goes to this one. All right, it's always good practice. All right, student practice. We have colors.html. I have it pulled up. This is what the final product should look like. You guys have the lesson in lesson 3, I believe. I'm not going to pull it up because it's gonna give you the answers. Oh no, it is giving me answers. I bet. It's what it looks like. I believe the style sheet should already be attached, but we're gonna take the next 15 minutes and kind of give it a try and see how you guys do, right? I obviously did not cover a lot of these, right? And this is why I have this pulled up right here, W3 Schools. So you can come to W3 Schools, go to CSS, And then they give you different options, right? So CSS, colors, backgrounds, borders, margins, padding. It's a whole list of all these. I could not possibly explain all these to you, and I'm not going to, right? As I mentioned to you guys before, there's so much that goes into software development. It'll be impossible for me to sit here all day just telling you every single one and how to use it. So we're gonna use our thinking caps and kind of find what we're looking for. For example, for borders, you can come here and it'll show you the type of borders and how to use them. Um, trying it yourself as well. So we have border width, border color, size, shorthands, yada yada. Um, I think we go to text. You have that too. Text decoration. Text decoration allows you to get a line, color, style, thickness, so on and so forth. We have underline here. That's gonna be one of the ones it's gonna ask you for. You can do a line through. But yeah, so use W2 Schools to your advantage, or if you have any other website that you guys like to use, by all means, give it a try. All right. Time is 5:46. We're gonna take the next 14 minutes to give this a try. We're not gonna go into any breakout rooms. This is a fairly simple assignment, so I'll stay here. If you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask.
Roger, could you put the example on your screen because I can't find it in the clone
You can't.
repository that we have?
Is it not on lesson 3 colors?
No, it just has the HTML file and the style sheet.
Yeah. For colors, correct?
Yeah, but I can't see like the actual example of what it's supposed to look
the
like.
final one. Yeah. So that was just that was me doing it. I did it for you guys so you guys can see it. For an example.
Oh, I see the. I
Correct.
see in. Okay, gotcha. Never mind.
Right. So you guys don't have this. This is actually you do have this. It's the colors.html. I have it. I'm using live server, but I've already done the CSS on my end. Oh, sneak peek. There you go. So that's
Now,
pretty
I
much the
see the
assignment.
description in the HTML file now.
Awesome. All right. So take the next 15 minutes. Give it a try.
Can't hear you, Roger.
I don't know why I keep doing that. All right. Awesome. Good job, everybody. Hopefully you guys got some good uh experience with it. You kind of, at least familiar with how to do it. A little, repetition from what we mentioned before. Foundations program is kind of just to get you guys started before you guys go into the immersive program. So when you guys first see this, it's not like brand new to you guys, and you guys are able to pick up more advanced subjects without feeling overwhelmed with like basic principles. So hopefully you guys feel somewhat comfortable, like, okay, I now I know how to do it. I know what a selector is, how it manipulates it, being able to link it to your document and how that works. But we're gonna go ahead and continue on. So we just did the colors.html. Next, we'll be talking about relationship. All right, so selecting by relationship. So here on the first 2 pictures on the first row, we have a section with a child P tag. Now, I say child, all right? This is a terminology that we use a lot when it comes to coding. We use parent and child terminology. By saying that the P tag is a child of section, we mean that it comes directly after section, right? And section being the parent tag of, the paragraph tag, it's right above it. So it came right before. That's usually what we mean when we say child or parent. And the way that we would manipulate a child directly that comes after another section would be by calling the section that we want to call and then using the greater than arrow pointing towards the child that we want to manipulate, right? So by reading this, we know that we are trying to essentially style the paragraph that comes directly after the section tag. Now, keep in mind, because we are using the element itself, right? The tag. If there is other sections with a child with a like a paragraph tag, then that's going to be manipulated as well, right? So you have multiple of these throughout your document. Every single one is going to be manipulated. Just keep that in mind for now. So this will manipulate the paragraph only, right? So the paragraph tag only. So if we had section and then we had a header within section, the header won't be manipulated. Why? Well, because we're trying to get directly the child that's a paragraph. Does that make sense with you guys so far? Okay, we are getting just the paragraph that's a child of section, and we're changing the color to red. Now, what do you guys think from what I just told you guys that this is doing, the second row?
The same thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Close, right? So we're not using that right arrow to identify that it's a direct child of section. We are saying, hey, I want you to go into section and grab any paragraph that's within section, right? It doesn't have to be directly underneath it. So we kind of see here on the left side, we have the section, and then article is a child of section, and then the paragraph is a child of article, right? Therefore, the parent of the paragraph is article, and the parent of article is section. The paragraph doesn't come directly after the section, but we still manipulate the color of that paragraph because we are saying any paragraph within section. Does not matter how nested it is, whether it comes directly afterwards or if it's 2-3 sections below it, it's still going to manipulate every paragraph within it. Does that make sense? So both of these will still change the color, but the relationship is different, right? So depending on the levels of where your paragraphs are at, whether it's a direct child of the that specific tag will depend whether it gets manipulated or not, right? So it's important to know this so you know how to manipulate certain tags within your page.
So, real quick, so on the first one with the greater than, so that is for if it's a child of the parent. So if in the case, if we were to use that and we were to have that article P in it that would not manipulate that one then, right? Because
Correct.
P is the child of the article and not the section.
Correct. It does not
Okay.
come directly after section, right? That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, moving on. All right, so selecting by relationship continues. So here we have a section, and it has two children, two paragraph tags. They're both children, right? The P tag is not a child of the other P tag. They're both children of section. And then here we have P plus P. Who wants to take a guess of what this is gonna do to our text?
Gonna format both?
Come again?
Is it gonna format both paragraph sections?
Negative. It's only going to format the second one, right? So what this is saying is, I want you to manipulate any paragraph that comes after another paragraph, not a parent or a child of it, right? But on the same level, I want you to get not the first one, but the second one. So P plus P. So if in your document you have different sections where you have multiple paragraphs that come after each other, right? They're not children or parent relationship. They're just side by side, very similar to how we see here in this section. Then we always want to manipulate just the one that comes second. So P plus P, right? If this was P plus P plus P, and there is a third paragraph here, then it will get the third one. It will skip over the first and second one, but it will only get the third one. Okay? Relationships.html. If you go to your document, you'll find it as well under lesson 3, relationships. You're gonna have something very similar to how we had in the colors. You'll have it already pre-built for you. All you have to do is go in there and start manipulating it based off the instructions given to you here, right? So making the H1 font purple and then trying to manipulate the different children within it, right? So give that a try. We'll take the next 10 minutes doing this, and then we'll recap.
Can't hear you.
All right, we're gonna do a quick walkthrough of the relationship assignment. Here on my screen, we see on the left side, I have my code, and on the right, the actual web page. In case some of you guys are very new to using VS Code, you're able to split screens like this by pressing this top button on top, which does your split editor, right? And then you can move different pages alongside of it. So it makes it easier to try to work on your document. Right. So we have here a bunch of different tags with different children nested within each other. We're gonna start from the top and work our way downwards. The first one is make my H1 font purple. So we only have one H1 font, so this one should be pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna do H1 color and purple. That adjusts our H1 font. Next gonna be make all my H2's font yellow. So H2 color yellow. We see that happen here. We have some H2s, and they're nested around the entire document. We have one nested within the section, and then we have another one nested within a section and an article. One just the article itself. But because we just said H2 in general, the specificity just got all of it, right? Doesn't matter whether it's nested or not. We didn't specify any plus, any greater than, or anything like that. Next was that we changed our mind. We didn't want to make everything yellow. We only want to make world and zero to be yellow. So if we look at a document, we have world and zero, and it's nested within a section. So we can go back to our H2 to section, and then use the greater than arrow to let it know that we only want the H2 elements that come right after a section tag, right? And we see here how it reflects. Only world and zero go back to yellow. Next was to make unicorn and duck font red. We come down here, unicorn is a child of article, and duck as well. This one, specifically unicorn, is a child of article, which is a child of section. But let's take it one step at a time. We'll say, grab an article who has a child that's an H2, and make this puppy red. We see that happen. Awesome. Next, we change our mind again. All right, we're indecisive, just like my wife. So we want to make sure that we change the unicorn font to orange and just unicorn. So let's look at unicorn. We see that unicorn specifically is a child of article, and article is a child of section. So we come down here and say section, article, and then H2, and we'll say color orange. Now, why does unicorn change from red to orange with the last rule and not duck?
It's more specific.
I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more specific, yes. We are using section, right? Over here, we got initially any H2 that's underneath an article, right? Which changed both of them. But down here, this one overrules what came before it, right? That's the beauty of cascading style sheets. Right here, even though that article and H2 was already specified here, we specified it has to come directly after section, and it came after line 9. So yeah, it is more specific, and also because it comes after this one as well. So it changes unicorn. And if you guys did it correctly, your document should look something very similar to what I have now. Does anyone have any questions about this assignment?
So the one thing, so I got the answer, but I didn't use the child elements, except for one, except for one time, and that was when I did the yellow. But for the rest, I didn't use it. and I got the same thing. So I guess that would make everything within that HTML, since I didn't use a child for my article, to be that color.
That's it.
Okay. Let me see. Let me share my screen. Use desktop capture. When do I use the window or the desktop capture?
Windows should be fine.
Window.
Ah,
Okay.
yeah, Windows should be. Now let's do desktop. If you're splitting your screen side by side, it won't show us the live server one. So do window.
Oh, do window. Okay. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, go ahead and do Control plus plus. See if you can zoom in a little bit.
Zoom in. Okay. No, it doesn't let me zoom in on the V code. It doesn't let me zoom in.
Okay, that's fine. I see. So you did section H2. You changed all your sections. Where is the H1? Is it purple?
So there wasn't I didn't see, oh, you know what? I did not see the first
It's okay.
H1.
So you did the section. You showed the child the section initially, so that changed everything to yellow. And then you got section, article, and H2 to be orange. And then article H2. Yeah, I mean it works the same. Good stuff.
So what I'm curious about, if there was more than one article and it wasn't nested in a section, would that change all of those colors as well? And would that be from the purpose of wanting to use the child
Yes.
element more? Okay.
So if you didn't right now, it didn't affect it because you only have like one-liners, right? And you only have like it was specifically set up in this manner. But if you would have had a section that had like maybe like like multiple divs in there and articles and so on and so forth, it would grab everything, no matter how nested it was, right? But because right now the levels of how nested our tags are, it didn't affect this specific assignment, right? But if you had other stuff within it, it would impact it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right, time is 6:28. We're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we will resume class. So I'll see you guys here at 6:38. Okay. Let's come back to our cameras. We're gonna continue with today's lesson. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so we just completed the relationships.html. Next, we're going to talk about the specificity, all right? IDs and classes. I touched a little bit on this yesterday, very briefly. IDs and classes are a way of selecting very distinct elements so you can style them, right? So earlier we were using the tag itself, right, as a selector. So whether it was the H1, H2, article, and so on and so forth. But now we're going to be using IDs and classes to get a little bit more specific about what we want to manipulate. All right. That way, instead of manipulating all these p tags and so on and so forth, we can just manipulate specifically what we want to change. Right. Here we see an example for both. All right. So for an ID, to add an ID to a tag, you add it on the opening tag. All right, so we see here on this section, there's two p tags. one does not have an ID, the second one does. Within the opening tag, they add ID equals, and then in quotation marks, they add the name or the ID they want to give this specific tag, right? Afterwards, within our CSS document, to access that specific paragraph tag that has an ID, we're going to select it by using the ID that we give it, right? IDs are called by a hashtag, and then classes are called by a dot, right? So here, we're trying to manipulate the hello world paragraph tag. So we call it by the ID, and then we change the color to red. This will make it so only this p tag changes color while the one above it remains unchanged. All right, you can do something very similar with the class. On the picture below, we have a section. It has 3 different p tags, but only the second and third one have classes. Notice that both of these have the same class. All right, classes can be given to multiple different tags. ID is typically just given to one. And we'll talk about this in a bit, right? So here, these 2 tags have the class robot, and then we call it within our CSS document using the dot robot and change the color to red, right? Now, specificity and the cascade. So when we talk about specificity and order of priority, the different elements that we have is going to be our tags, which is what we've been using up to this point, right? Our H2, H1, our P tags, article tags, all those tags, those all have 1 point of specificity, right? That is the lowest amount of specificity that there is. All right. The next level is going to be our classes, right? That's that dot robot that you guys saw earlier. Classes have 10 points of specificity. They can be reused, right? We can add them to multiple different tags, and so on and so forth. IDs are more unique than classes. And because they're more unique, they also have a higher level of specificity points. They have 100 points, right? And the reason why we talk about specificity is because that's how your document rates what takes priority over another, right? So essentially, if you give a paragraph tag an ID, right, that paragraph tag now has 100 points of specificity. And then later you give it a class and you try to override the ID, it won't work. Why? Because the ID has a higher level of priority due to its specificity over that class. Right? That prevents things to be overridden within your CSS document, right? Your inline styles has the highest level of specificity, which is why we don't use them as often, right? You don't see it. Not only is it not, clean in your code, but it overrides the tag, the class, and the ID. And if later on you wanted to go and change it in your CSS document and you have a bunch of documentation on your HTML and you have inline styling, it will be impossible to override it. And then you have to go through there and look for why your button is not changing color. And it's probably because you did some inline styling, right? So you want to avoid as much as possible using inline styles to change your HTML, right? You want to use either IDs or classes, and then which ones you use will depend on you, right? It depends what you're trying to manipulate, style, whether it's important, whether that specific item is going to change frequently or not, will determine whether you give it an ID or class or not. Also, how unique that item is, right? If it's one specific button that it's only this one button is going to have this specific style, then you will want to use an ID, right? But if you have, for example, your navbar up here, right? Your file, edit, views, tools, and help. These are multiple of these. You probably give these a class. I mean, maybe we can probably see if we go to our inspect tool. Let's see. Right, so here we have, you see it hovered on the right side. It says div, it has an ID, but it also has a class menu button. It's hovering over the overall box. So there probably is a specific reason for the ID, but they're also the class here. We have menu button, Google Control. This other button has the same class, menu button, Google Control. The next one has menu button, Google Control. their IDs differ. You see docs view menu, docs tool menu, docs help menu. So they have IDs and classes. Both its ID and class probably has a specific styling for a reason. But this is how that works, right? So you can see that all these share the similar class, but they all have unique IDs as well. So whatever their ID is, it's probably overriding specific something that makes them unique to that specific button, right? And it's probably not the style itself. They're probably using the ID to make it unique for some type of functionality. And we'll talk about that later. Oh, my bad. So specificity, right? So remember, specificity matters as you write your CSS file. Elements further down your file will overwrite previous elements if they are greater than or equal to in specificity. All right, so that's where your ID and your classes matter. Here we have a nice little example of the specificity.html. We have the inline ID class element. And this is how you go by points, ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. Elements having the lowest level of specificity, they'll have 1. If you add a class, it'll be 1, 0. If you add an ID and it has a class, it'll be 1, 1, 0. And so on and so forth, right? That's how that works. Highest to lowest. I don't remember doing this one actually. Let's look at it. Oh, I do remember doing this one. Let's go ahead and open this up. I'm not gonna lie to you, I forgot about the assignment, so I'm a little unprepared. So let's figure it out together. All right, so we have our HTML document. Let's go ahead and do a split screen, move our styling over here, close this up. So now, this is gonna be the structured sample. So the first one is please make only rhino and zebra blue. So let's look down here. We have rhino and zebra. Only these are to be blue. We have a class of Africa 4 legs. Does any of those have the same class? They do not. We'll start with the lowest level of specificity, and we can always go up higher. The intent is not to add IDs right off the bat, because then we want to change it later in our CSS document. It would make it pretty difficult. So if you guys remember the class, we're going to start with the dot. We'll say Africa 4 legs. Do I have? No, my bad. This has 2 classes. I believe it's Africa and 4 legs. So if I'm correct, it should be Africa. Element class Africa, correct? Yeah, Africa, and then we can do make only rhino and zebra blue. We say color and give it blue. And it should change it. Correct. There we go. Rhino and zebra. Next, going to be please make only Hufflepuff gold. So Hufflepuff, where is it at? We have right here on line 23, we have an H2, which is Hufflepuff. It has an ID of best house. It has 3 different classes. We have Harry Potter, Triwizardchamp, and Badger. We will only want to make Hufflepuff gold. We can probably just use the class Harry Potter for now, and then change it later if we need to. So we'll go with dot Harry Potter, and it's gonna be color gold. All right. Next, please select duck with the highest level of specificity possible. Now, what was the highest level of specificity possible?
Inline. Hey, can I ask you a question before we do that, Roger?
Yes.
If we would have done section article H2, would that just be 1 point, or would that be 3 points because it's using all 3 of them?
If I'm correct, that should be 3 points.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be 3 points. It's using 3 different elements to tell you which one it is.
Okay.
Now here it's saying please select duck the highest level of specificity possible. Yes, inline is, but we're talking directly about whether it's ID or classes, or the element. So we could go in here and do the inline, but we're trying to take advantage of the idea in the class itself. So we're gonna do is please select duck with the highest level of specificity possible. So we have duck here, and there is it has two classes. Yes.
A question. So when you were doing the class and the styles CSS, why are you able to only put part of the class name from the HTML file?
So there's different classes. I believe we should be able to do 4 legs as well. And use it as well, right?
So the space is a separate class. It isn't Africa 4 legs as a whole class. Those are 2 separate classes.
Correct.
Okay.
It has 2 separate classes on here.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I believe one has more specificity than the other. I want to say the first one probably has more specificity, or the second one. I don't remember exactly which one it was. We'll figure that out right now. So we can do highest level of specificity possible, likes to coax. Check it out. And it's supposed to be this doesn't change anything. Okay. So we see here, right? So hovering over likes to quack. Selector specificity is gonna be 1, 0. What if we do fight? What is that? 10 or fight, 10 or 100. So these are both the exact same specificity. Give me a second. Let's see. They both have the same specificity, but I believe if we use both of them, we are specifically saying this one. So it should be likes to quack. I don't know what game I use these classes. We'll just say color red to make sure that we can actually manipulate it. Did I do something wrong? Likes to quack by 10 or 100. Okay, so we
I think it was just one capital O instead of 1 0.
You think so? Oh, I think you're right. By or 100. You were wrong, Kim.
Yeah, it still isn't working. Bummer.
It's okay. By why is it not working? Because it worked over here, Africa, and then we did 4 legs. It did not do it actually. Why is it not doing it now?
I tried doing just 4 legs and it worked, but you should be able to do both, you're saying?
4 legs. Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to use both.
And if one works, why would you use 2? Would that just be more points?
Wait a second. My girl is texting. If you use both, if they have multiple ones, but you only want one to get one specific one, then that's how it would go. But I believe you would have to do it like this, 4 legs. Color red. All right, so there's 2 classes. This one is overriding this one. Now, what if we switch it over? All right, so either one, whichever one comes down below the cascading sheet will take priority. This one, that's the quack. All right, so use one or the other. You could use either both. You can reference it using both classes, but you would have to be separate. And then whichever one comes down your class further will take priority. 4 legs. Orange. Yeah. 4 legs, orange. Yep. Okay. So you can use either or, but it does have 2 classes. And you see here that we don't even need a comma or anything. You just put it right after each other. But whichever one comes down your cascading style sheet will take priority. Now why would we want to use that, right? So you have, let's say you have multiple H2s that have it, right? You can give one a Harry Potter class while the other one has Try Wizard Champ. They're all the same ones, but one might be like different for specific reasons that you might be using on your page. So changing the class like that will be useful on your part. It just gives you the option to use the same one, but without having to add an ID selector. Does that make sense? Because the moment you add the ID, you kind of override everything else again. And your IDs being unique, you can only use it once. But by having multiple classes on one element, you're able to kind of manipulate that again later on in your style sheet without increasing the level of specificity by adding that unique ID. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
I'm not following that actually.
Okay, so
I'm still not understanding the benefit of having
Right.
more than
so imagine you have multiple paragraphs, right? Each paragraph, you're gonna want to change the paragraphs to whatever you want. Whether let's say you want to change them to a color red, right? But for whatever reason, later on, one paragraph needs to be more unique than the other. By adding an additional class, you can still keep the level of specificity as low as possible without giving an ID. Because the moment you give it the ID, it increases the level of specificity to 100. And then trying to override the ID is going to be virtually impossible unless you use inline styling, right? So how do we have the ability to change one of those paragraphs out of like the 5 paragraphs you have without increasing the level of specificity right off the bat, right? So as you saw me here starting off, the first thing I want to do is I want to grab the classes, right? I didn't choose ID Rhino or ID Zebra right off the bat. I went to the class first, right? Because the moment I start calling it by the ID here and adding styling to it, it's gonna override anything previously to that if it was called by a class. Does that make sense? So by having
Yeah, I
multiple
get that.
classes, yeah. Yeah, so by
Do-
having multiple classes, you can avoid using the ID as much as possible until like, you know what, hey, for sure, this paragraph tag is gonna be unique compared to the other ones. Only this one is gonna be like red. So I'm gonna use the ID instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see you using the ID instead, but if you use Africa for one paragraph, you want it red, and you want another paragraph blue, you can't use 4 legs, right? That would turn all of them blue.
Yes. So essentially you would, right? So you would have to add that extra class to the one that you want to change. Does that make sense? My family just got here. Yeah, buddy, that's busy. I'm sorry. They just got here.
Can you
But
show us? Like add another class, the Africa 4 legs.
Africa 4 legs. Oh, are you talking about like so adding like multiple other classes here?
Yeah, like add an extra class to see if it changes Rhino.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Rhino. Oh, I see what you guys are getting at. Are you talking about having multiple classes and then adding the like a third or fourth one there to just move that one?
If it was just in Rhino and not in Zebra, then it would make sense to me.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I guess I might have confused you guys. Well, I'm pretty sure there's a way to using both of these. Uh, Okay, so let me show you. If we have on my, let me put it to the right, move to the left. Right, let's say for, get rid of these. On the Africa one, I want to change the color, and then let's say text or font weight. Let's make it bold. Oh, sorry, bold. Font style. Let's say italic. All right, cool. Now this one, both of these have Africa. Let's remove 4 legs off of Rhino. And let's go with 4 legs. And then we're going to change something else. Background color to red. Right? So both of these have Africa, but one also has 4 legs, and it allows you to keep the styling from both of these, but only one of them is going to have a different change to it. And that way you're able to both have the same styling that Africa has, but one also has styling for 4 legs. Does that make sense now?
That makes perfect sense. Thanks for explaining that better. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. English is my second language, and I'm trying here. Cool. All right. Do you guys understand so far? Do I need to give you guys another example and for something else of the purpose of having multiple classes? Okay, but yeah, so we have that. Let's actually go into talking about let's bring everything else back. Okay, let's get rid of 4 legs. So recapping where we went off, we made only Rhino and Zebra blue. Already got that. We made Hufflepuff gold. So Hufflepuff is gold. Then we said please select the duck with the highest level of specificity. We came down here to duck. We'll use likes to quack first. We made it red. Because they didn't specify anything else there, and it says please select Rhino with the highest level of specificity possible. Right. So earlier, Rhino was changed by using the class, but now the highest level of specificity possible on this one, it does have an ID, so we can go and do it hashtag, and we're gonna say Rhino, and then let's change the color to purple. Right. So even though we made Rhino blue earlier using the class, because IDs have higher level of specificity, it changed it to purple. It completely ignored the previous CS styling we add to it and made it purple, but it still kept Zebra because Zebra has a different ID, right? But the thing to know is that IDs will override any class that you might have used earlier. Cool? All right. We're gonna move on. I do apologize for that confusion earlier. Let's see what's next. So that was the instructor example. Next is gonna be the box model, right? So if you guys remember yesterday of me talking to you guys about your boxes in the divs, everything on a web page is a box, right? If you guys recall that BBC website, CNN, we hover everything else, and they're all kind of categorized in boxes, right? And these boxes have a height and a width, as well as padding and margin. Well, this little picture gives you a perfect representation of what margin and padding is. People tend to get those confused, right? So the actual item within this box is this right here, the dark red. This is the height and the width of your div. Now, what the space that surrounds the actual div itself is going to be your padding. All right, this is typically what's between your div and its border. That is a padding, right? The margin is what's going to come after your border and the edge of the div. All right, so this is the content. Imagine you have a picture within this div. Let's see if we can get some visuals here. I don't have one here, but I can make a new file. Oh, let's make it in here. We'll say box.html, and let's open this up. Right, border plate, body. Let's create a CSS style dot looks like box style dot CSS. Now, how do we link this? Will you walk me through this?
Would you just link the relationship? So styles dots well bot style dot CSS.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and use the link tag. And then within our link tag, we're going to do relationship, which is what type of relationship is it? Style sheet. And then it takes a what?
href.
Href.
An href. And the href is going to
Bot style CSS.
correct. All right, it's going to be linked to the actual style sheet that we created. So now our CSS is actually linked to our HTML. Let's go ahead and create a div here. And let's open this up on live server. And here we can do a div. Let's put an image. Wants to give me an image.
Put a picture of you in there, Roger.
We're gonna do cat memes. All right. I don't think I have a picture on me. Cat memes. You got me. Okay, let's go to this one. I wonder if we can get the copy image address maybe. This one is gonna be, I believe it's source. And then source will be the item we added in there. Boom. The source. All right, cool. Now we have our little makeshift div with an image. Let's look at our CSS. Let's add a class here, and this will be our practice div. Within here, we're gonna go call our practice div. And now we can do height. Actually, let's do a border first so we can kind of see what we're looking at. Border is going to be 2 pixels, solid, black. All right, so we see the border. So this is a div itself, right? Notice the div is going all the way to the far right. Our image is here, but the width is taking the entirety of our page. So let's change this. We can go to width. We can say 50 view width. And what VW does, it gives you 50%, I guess 50% of what your view width will look like. So here we can go ahead and increase it, and it's right there. And then we can say height is equal to 25 of our VH, which is our view height. Oh no, that's way too small. Let's go with 50 view height. All right, now to center our div, we're gonna go ahead and display, do flex. And notice that it changed a little bit, right? Justify content. Let's say center. Let's increase the view width a little bit so we actually see it. Make this easier for now. 75 and 75. Oh no. How big is our thing? Just like content, center, display. What was the other one? There's another command for this. I believe it's align items or view height. 25, 75. As you see, centering items is not my specialty. Align items. Let's go center. There we go. Cool. So, you just saw me go through the struggle of centering something inside a div. And you guys are gonna go through that in a bit, right? So we have our picture within our div. Let's go ahead and inspect this. And we can see the different parts of the div itself. There should be, where's it at? Styles, there we go. Awesome, right? So we can hover over different parts of our div and see what it is. So the actual content of itself is here. And then we see the padding. We can't really see the padding, and that's because we didn't add any padding. So we can say padding, and we can say 20 pixels. And now we go back to it, and we hover over the padding. Can I just not see it? Left, padding. Or I think it's padding left. Padding left. I knew it. 20 pixels. Okay, it's probably because we're aligning items. Let's go with 5 pixels. All right, you just saw it move. You guys saw that, right? You saw it move. Padding left, right? So padding left, we adjusted the padding and it shifted because we actually added less padding. But what if we add like 20 pixels? You guys probably can't see it like this. 50. Right, so it added padding between the image itself and then its border, right? And it pushed it off to the right. If we add 25%, what does that do? Not much.
Roger. So when this does this make it adjust dynamically as well, or that is something that would just be constant?
Constant. You set it to different settings, right? So the view height, as we see here, it does adjust dynamically. Right, so typically to make it dynamic on your web page, you want to avoid using stuff like pixels, right? You typically want to use stuff like one view height or view width or percentages, right? Because once you start working on your phone, right, you're looking at your website through your phone. If you're adding like pixels, it can really skew your image and your divs. So by adding like view height, right, that's the of your what you can see on your screen. view width, that's your screen, percentages, it makes it a little bit more dynamic, especially when you start working with stuff like pictures. We have to add more styling here to adjust this picture as well. But yeah, so the main point of this exercise was to be able to see how the padding is shown, right? The margin, we can see the margin as well of the div itself and the border. There's like 8 pixels of margin here. You can even see here on the margin, it's 8 pixels. Margin top, right, left, bottom. Let's change that. We can do margin, and you can specify which side you want to do. You say margin 20 pixels, and then it's probably not showing it to me because of how big it is. But it did change it. You see the gaps here? That's the margin that I had added onto it. And it's still trying to get as much of the view height as possible and view width as possible because of the setting I had. So it's gonna be very interesting trying to see you guys do this. But the padding itself is what's between your border and the contents of your div. Then there's the border itself. We can even change the border size to be significantly thicker than what it is. All right, 10 pixels, right? And then everything outside that border is the margin. The main point of the exercise is to be able to see the different parts of your div of your box model, right? So yeah, it's the image itself or the contents of your div, then the padding that's between the border, and margin is what's outside of the border. So when you're trying to align all these divs within another div, and you see that there's like huge gaps between your boxes, it's probably because there's like, the margin from the outside your divs is very great, right? It's not spaced evenly, so you can lower the margins or space them out by increasing the margins. If you have text inside of your box, right, but the text is not as high as you want it on your div, you could increase or decrease the margin from the top or increase the margin from the bottom, so on and so forth. And that's how you manipulate the state of what the contents of your div is at. Cool. Right, so this is the content of your div. The padding is what surrounds the div, the items itself and the border, and then the margin is what's outside of the border. That's the biggest thing you guys have to take away from this. Student practice is going to be the box model.html. Let's check that out. So let me delete this and this. Box model. You have some H1s, a section, and a list. Your intent is to, I think I already completed it. Yeah. Your intent is to mess around with the boxes, add padding to it, margins, increase the border, change the border colors, and try to center some of this stuff around here. It's a little tricky, but it honestly, you kind of have to mess with it to get good with it. Unless you guys do front end and this is all you do, you probably won't become subject matter experts, but knowing that how to manipulate it is what's important. So the time is 7:18. Actually, let's take a 10-minute break now, so that way you guys can actually focus on it. Come back at 7:28 and then work on this until 7:45. Sound good? All right.
Cool.
Can't hear you.
My bad. Oh my God, I keep doing that, man. Let's go ahead and come back to our cameras and continue with today's lesson. So, you guys went over the box model.html. You guys should have gotten something very similar to this. If it's not exactly, that's okay. If you guys were watching this code along earlier, it was very vague on the instructions when it came to like how much padding and whatnot. So as long as it looks something similar to this and you were able to, for the most part, actually center this div, That's what's important, right? But yeah, so another imagery here of what it looks like, right? You have your div with the border, the padding and the margin. Just another demonstration. Everything being a box, right? So I keep saying this, said it yesterday, right? Pretty much everything that you see on a web page is a box. I think I mentioned a meme before. Everything is a div spaceman meme. Pretty funny. It's something like this. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. It's like, oh, so everything's a div, and it's like it always was. But yeah, everything you see here is honestly just a bunch of boxes within boxes. And that's kind of how they align everything. This is one big div. Inside here, there's a smaller div within other divs, so on and so forth. A div is probably a div as well. Yeah, all boxes. Cool.
Say, Roger, can you show me your code? I couldn't get the box to center. So can you show me how you did that?
Yeah, give me a second. Let me see if I can pull it back up. Mm, where is that? It was probably because of your margin. Where's that? If you want, we can see who was it that I was talking to earlier.
It was Gary. It was me. I can screen share it.
I think I got it. All right. It should look something similar to this. Your sections, you should have something very similar to like a flex box, or you can remove the margins on the side, right? The margins will essentially just align it for you, or we can check Gary's out. Gary, do you want to show us your flex box? I mean, actually kind of jump into this, right? So the biggest thing that people use to center divs is going to be your CSS grid and flexbox. Flexbox is going to be what we use the most here, and which you'll probably use on the assignment. But flexbox gives you the ability to manipulate the box in general. So there you see Gary's explanation, right? So he has on his section display. So that's how you start using your flexbox display. You set it to flex. And that allowed you to manipulate the box itself. Justify content allowed him to center it. Same thing with the items inside of his flexbox by using align items, right? But without that margin he had here on line 38, for some reason, it was giving me issues. So we set the margin to 0 auto, and that kind of allowed it to automatically align itself to the rest of the settings that we had.
Yep, that did it for me. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. All right. Going back to my screen. So that Flexbox, that's going to conclude today's lesson for that. I want to talk about the README. If we go to the lesson and the README, you see we have the classwork, which will be the colors, relationship, specificity, and box model. You do have 2 different videos here that you can watch in regards to Flexbox and how to use it. What I will recommend for you guys to do is to use flexboxfroggy.com. Flexbox Froggy is pretty cool. It allows you to use Flexbox. As you see here, they kind of already started it for you on line 2. We have display flex. Then it tells you the different types of commands that you can use using justify content property, right? So the goal here is to get the little froggy onto the lily pad, right? So to do that, we want to use these property values on justify content. So we'll go justify content. And then we even have a small little demonstration or description of what each one does. Flex start aligns items to the left side of the container, or N, which to the right side. Center aligns them to the center of the container, and space between items displayed with equal spacing between them. So if you have a box with multiple boxes inside them, it'll space it out with equal spacing between each one. All right, and then you also have space around, which has equal spacing on all 360 degrees. For this one, we might want to do flex N, right? And we see here, it's on the lead pad, and we get the next button lit up, and we can move forward. There's 24 exercises, so it's fairly quickly. And this is pretty much what we're gonna have left for the rest of the day. We have not only the Flexbox Froggy, but we also have where is it at? Practice layouts. We have layout 1, layout 2, and layout 3, right? So for the remainder of the day, we're gonna have these 2 assignments. Your assignment is, I want you guys to start off with Flex Box Froggy, right? I want you to complete from level 1 to 24, get used to Flexbox, and once you complete all the 24 challenges, you're gonna go ahead and move on to your practice layout folder, and then create a HTML and CSS document, link the CSS document, and I want you to recreate this imagery, okay? Essentially, you should have one big div that keeps all the other divs in here. You can have 3 divs, right? And each one of those 3 divs inside here, the first one won't have anything. The second one is going to have 4 divs within it. And it's going to be up to you guys to see if you can replicate this. Color code these bad boys so we can actually see it. Add a border, a very thin border, so you can see the where it ends. Obviously, you're probably not going to want to have any margins on this one, right? Because they're supposed to be side by side and whatnot. This looks like this might be probably 50% of your view width, and then these 3 might be this might be 40%, and these might be 20, 20, 20, right? So that's kind of just try and look at it and dissect it of how wide you're gonna want to have these bad boys. This might be 50% view height. These might be 25 and 25, just so you can kind of start looking and thinking of how you're gonna space these out, how big should you make them, so on and so forth, right? So, yeah, that's how you guys gonna do it. And then same thing with the other ones. Cool. We're gonna split up into groups for this one, and then I will bounce back between groups and whatnot. Actually, yeah, we'll split into groups, just like we did yesterday, and then I'll bounce between groups, and I can talk to you guys about anything you guys have any questions about, or help you out with the layouts, right? So we'll take from 7:54 to 8:15 to complete. Actually, probably less. I'll just break it into groups now. You guys can do it in the group channel, so I don't want to hold people back if they finish early. We're gonna do the Flexbox Froggy and then do the 3 layouts. Sound good?
So how long are we doing? So what's the instruction?
The instruction is for the remainder of the class, we're gonna stop at 8:45 today. So for the
Okay.
remainder of class, you're gonna work on Flexbox Froggy. You guys need to complete the 24 challenges on it, and then your intent is to replicate all 3 layouts that you saw on the practice layout folder.
Okay.
We're 15 here. So man. finishing off from today. Our document. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm pretty sure most of you guys were able to complete the Froggy assignment. Give you some good experience with Flexbox, at least being able to manipulate it. And now we're gonna go talk about the layouts, right? So you guys can finish these off on your own as your little homework and practice. I mentioned to you guys to create an HTML document for your layout assignment, and then create a CSS document, right? So that's what I went ahead and did. I got my boilerplate going in. I linked my CSS document that's right here, and I started working on it the last 10 minutes here, so I can give you guys a quick demonstration without spending too much time coding and wasting your time. But essentially, if you guys remember, I mentioned to you guys that divs are essentially boxes, right? Everything that we see are just boxes. So I went ahead and within my body, this is the main code. I created an overall div, which is like my main div. So I just went ahead and gave it a class name main. I didn't have to, and I'll talk about why I did something like this in a bit. But that pretty much is supposed to take up the entirety of my screen, right? So that big div will be what's the root level of my body, which is supposed to be the entirety of it. And then within that main div, I mentioned to you guys that you should have other divs, right? So we have box 1, box 2, box 3, and then box 4. And that is represented by these divs right here, div 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And obviously, if you see the layout, there's even smaller divs within these divs, right? Box 2 has 3 of them, and box 3 has 2. So we went ahead and did that. I created 3 separate divs on box 2, and I call these box 2.1, box 2.2, and box 2.3. I give them all individual classes because I'm gonna need to be able to manipulate them. And then for box 3, I didn't get to it, but this should have 2 other divs as well, right? Being box 3.1 and box 3.2. You can call it whatever you want. This is just how I was able to class them and being able to manipulate them, right? So for the CSS, right? So initially, when I started adding CSS here, there was an issue. For some reason, my overall div had padding, or I guess a margin on the outside, and it wasn't taking up the entirety of my screen. There was padding on the edge, on the outer edge, and on the top and bottom. So how did I get rid of that? Well, by default, the body has a little bit of margin in it. So I had to directly manipulate the body, and I went to it. I did margin 0 and then padding 0 just for redundancy. And then you see here, I use the property overflow. And what that does, it keeps you from having to scroll, right? If it does overflow by any chance by a little bit, it removes that scroll bar. So if I remove overflow, you will see that I get this scroll wheel right here because it did overflow a little bit out of my page. So that overflow prevents that from happening. Let's put it back in there. And then I started manipulating the individual boxes, right? So box 1, 2, 3, and 4, I went ahead and gave them their individual width, right? So 100 view width for all 4 of them because they're supposed to reach the entirety of my width of my window. And the height, I kind of just guesstimated, right? About 20 view height for box 1 and 4, and then for box 2 and 3, I gave them 30 for a completion of 100% view height, right? And then for better representation, I added colors, right? I changed their colors, and I even added borders. That way, it makes it easier for us to see what my boxes are doing. And then came the actual manipulation of the boxes. For box 2, I went ahead and did display flex, which allowed me to actually align these, right? So without the flex, we see what my page looks like right now, but when I didn't have the flex or the space evenly, as you guys may already guess, as you see here, it's only one box, right? You don't see it, but they're overlapping each other. So I had to go ahead and add the flex in here so they can kind of space out evenly. And once they were spaced spaced out within box 2, then I can go ahead and manipulate every individual one. So jumping to box 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2, 3. There was an issue where there was little gaps between my boxes. So by just adding flex and adding 1 to it, don't ask me why it works. It removes the spacing between the boxes. And it gave me this nice little demonstration. I didn't get to finish it on box 2, 3, but essentially I would do flex 1, and I would just keep the solid in black. And it looks a little bit neater on this one. All right, so it's nice and even. There's no spacing between it, and it gives me what I was looking for. All right, I'm gonna stop there so I'm not wasting any more time. But this is kind of what I was hoping for you guys to do for the layouts for layout 1, 2, and 3. So you guys can try that out on your own if you guys get a chance. But that's going to go ahead and conclude today's lesson of CSS. Hopefully you guys can take something out of it today. You feel a bit more comfortable working with CSS and how to, connect it to HTML document, mess around with divs. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that goes to styling. A lot of the stuff is going to have to be on you, right? So what boot camps do is they give you a roadmap, right? So I'm sure a lot of you guys already started coding on your own. You probably spent a couple months already. If not, some of you guys probably have some previous experience, but you didn't know where to go, right? When I started coding, I went to my local library and I got like 8 different books: Python, JavaScript, C++, C#. But I didn't know what was what, right? I didn't know what language it was. But what Copeland does for you, it provides you a roadmap from start to finish, so you know how to build upon your coding skills, so you can actually get that job. Obtaining relevant experience in different parts of the full stack application process, so you understand how it works and how it comes together. So, but for foundations of programming, a lot of it is going to be very surface level, just enough so you guys are ready for the actual immersive program where you're going to get, a much more deeper understanding of all this stuff. But yeah, that's going to conclude CSS. You guys will see this more once you guys start doing front end in the immersive program. Tomorrow we have adding JavaScript to our HTML and CSS, and we can actually start making some buttons and make it interactable. That's when it starts getting really fun. So hopefully you guys are here for tomorrow, so you guys can actually make buttons and make a calculator and whatnot, and it's a to-do list on your computer. But if you guys have no questions for me, you guys are free to go for the rest of the evening.